I see your shares are called higher this morning. The numbers beat estimates. Tell me how sustainable you think this performance is, because it seems to have come in pretty strongly this quarter.
It's been a good quarter. It's been a good year. The numbers look well. The operations are running all across the company. Best year on safety, which means reliable operations, which leads to good financial results.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that, because I was looking at your return on capital employed, better than last year, better than peers, and some of that seems to be driven by more reliable infrastructure, if you like, oil platforms and refineries. So that seems to, is that something that then sustains into future quarters?
Well, that's what we want to do. We've been improving this year after year after year for many years now. It's our returns have doubled, our earnings doubled this year. It's some of it's the oil price, but a lot of it is just operations. We brought on 6 major projects last year. We brought on 19 since 2016, and we've got more coming down the pipe.
And talk to me about capital expenditure then. You're guiding around 15 to 17, I think, now for the year. That's a little lower than maybe the average of the last few years. Do you feel the need to bring that down a little?
Well, in 2017, we laid out a 5-year strategy, so we're about halfway through it. We've been really clear, discipline between 15 and 17 billion. Move up and down a little bit within that range, but that discipline is really important on projects. So we're going to use that capital very carefully and stay within that range.
And on that subject, some of those projects that you've been spending money on, maybe pushing up the gearing level a little bit, above 30% in the last quarter. That's above the range that you've said, only just, but it is above the range that you've said you want to keep it in. So what are your plans with regards to gearing?
So the capital spending, the prices and costs, projects are coming in on time, under budget, which is good. We've just pierced the range, but it's really because of one transaction, an accretive transaction. We thought it was a great opportunity with BP. So on the backside of that, we've committed to divest over the next 2 years, $10 billion. We'll bring the gearing back down. I'm not concerned about just ticking outside the range a little bit because it's such a good transaction. Yeah,
and you've set out some of the divestments that you've made. You seem to be running, and maybe are you ahead of schedule on some of those divestments, selling more in 2018 than some had anticipated? So how does that progress in the years ahead?
We sold $3.5 billion last year, but we've committed to $10 billion over the next 2 years, and we've committed to buy back shares. We've got lots of plans. It's obviously one where we progressive returns to our shareholders. We've got to execute on the divestments. We usually do what we say we're going to do, so I'm not concerned about it. The gearing will come back down.
And the focus in terms of the divestments is still on mature US onshore assets, is it? Can you tell us any more about what is going to be up for sale?
Well, we have talked about some of our gas business in the US, and we call it the lower 48. But really, in a company the size of BP, anything can be on the table. It doesn't necessarily have to be from the lower 48. But right now, we've got the data rooms open. Looks like there's interest. But we're going to look at everything.
Some people talk, you mentioned your gearing, you said you're comfortable with it. Some people suggest you've been more flexible in taking advantage of those opportunities, such as the one you referenced, which sent the gearing up a little. Do you think the rest of the sector is underinvesting at this point?
Well, I think the rest of the sector, I mean, it's an unloved sector, right? And I think this capital discipline, which all the companies seem to be following, is a good thing for the sector. So the discipline is out there. I wouldn't say people are underinvesting, but they're certainly doing it with a lot of discipline.
You've talked about, if I ask you about the oil price, you've said that you're factoring in 50 to 65, I think, for this year. What are the stress tests that you put around that then, Bob? Because obviously forecasting the oil price is tricky.
Right, it's right, that's right. So actually we probably planned the company at a lower level. We started at $55 a barrel coming out of 2017. We've got break-evens now down to 50, so we can operate now comfortably. The oil price today is about 63. It's well above that planning. As a company, of course, we test economics below 50 and above 65 just to see which projects are most leveraged to oil prices. We have a very big gas business, the downstream business, so we're not just an oil pure play. This is why you see sometimes, like last quarter, the downstream making up for what was a dip in the oil price.
Yeah, in terms of that dip in the oil price, does it look more sustainable from here? Do you credit OPEC and its policies with stabilizing the price?
Well, it does look to me that the OPEC plus countries, there's 24 countries there, is making a difference. They've announced reductions in production when the waivers for Iran, the Iran sanctions were granted. Of course, the oil price fell. Those reductions are only kicking in the first quarter now. So it looks to me, when you combine that discipline that OPEC plus seems to have, and as demonstrated now for quite a while, and you look at factors like Venezuela, you know, human tragedy, there are things that could make firm up the oil price. And then later in the year, the debottlenecking of infrastructure in the Permian will come. So there's factors up and down, but feels tight to me.
Feels tight. How is the Venezuelan political and, as you say, human crisis, how is that impacting on your business? I've read that the Gulf of Mexico has turned into something of a parking lot for Venezuelan crude.
Yes, I mean, it doesn't really affect our business. We don't do business in Venezuela. It certainly changes flows of crude. I mean, it's a real human tragedy. Nobody can predict what's going to happen. I don't think it's going to get sorted out for some time, though.
Let me ask you about carbon, because you talk today in your statement about the energy transition. It's something you've talked about in the past. You're supporting a shareholder resolution asking for, well, promising more disclosure on how your business plan aligns with the Paris Climate Accord. Are you feeling pressure from shareholders to be more upfront about that?
Well, I think we're engaging all across. We're listening to society, really. This message is coming from many directions, and so this resolution that we've talked and spent some time with, it's really a transparency resolution. It will change what we add to what we report. We'll link it to our strategy. It will help us, I think, internally with this framework we've got to reduce our own emissions, increase our product qualities and reduce emissions from our own products, and then create new business models. So I think this energy transition we're working on all fronts.
And is it, the future of electric vehicles and charging stations, is that part of the strategy then? You recently made some acquisitions in that space. How big does that get for BP?
Well, we've purchased the UK's largest vehicle charging company called ChargeMaster. So we're putting those in our forecourts. We're learning a lot about it. We're learning about how consumer patterns change and people come in, combine it with convenience stores. So we're learning and we're investing in it, and we'll take it to Europe, and then we'll take it. We're even starting to think about doing some of that in China. So we've got to be ready for this transition on all fronts. We've got lots of people working in all directions on this. We'll tell the story more with this transparency resolution.
You've seen a lot of changes at BP over what nearly 10 years.
Yes,
Bob, thinking about the future at all? Thinking about any changes coming? For you, I mean, as the leader of this business.
No, I was just asked about it, and I said, you know, come from a culture we don't even think about retiring at 65. I serve at the pleasure of the board. We've got great people at BP. The main thing will be sometime to just pass the baton smoothly.
Yeah, are there succession conversations going on, or too early for that?
I think it's too early, not active. But I hear rumors on the outside, like you mentioned, but there's nothing moving on that.